Weaving vocabulary. Weaving. This is the interlacing of threads to form fabric. Loom. This is the frame on which a weaving is created. Looms come in all shapes and sizes. The type of loom used in our classroom is made out of cardboard. Warp and weft. The strings attached to the loom that go up and down are called the warp. The strings that go over and under across the warp are called the weft. Bubble. This refers to the space that the weaver leaves before packing the weft down. It keeps the edges from pulling in and the warp from being too tight. Texture. The element of art that refers to the way something feels. In weaving, texture is created with yarn and patterns created when you alternate the number of warp and weft strings. Tapestry. This is a type of weaving that shows a picture. The warp is not part of the design. This is a close-up of a tapestry. Cartoon. Tapestry weavers plan their design on paper first and then use this as a guide when they go to weave. This plan is called a cartoon, not to be confused with animated cartoons that you might see on television. Cartoons can be rendered in black and white or color. The cartoon on the left is projected on the wall behind the weaving in progress. The cartoon on the right is a cartoon that has not been put on the loom yet. And these are examples of weavings in their different forms. The history of weaving. Weaving is a craft that started out of necessity and has developed into an art form. Weavings have been found that date back thousands of years. Cultures all over the world, from China to Peru, have a rich history of weaving. It is a craft which still plays an integral part in our everyday life. Some of the earliest weavings have been excavated from sites in China. The Chinese are credited with discovering the complex process of making silk from the cocoons of worms that only feed on the bark of mulberry trees. The soft, shiny, and lightweight thread was woven into luxurious fabrics that were highly sought after. Silk became a very expensive commodity and opened up the doors of trade between China and Europe. In ancient Scotland, weavers started to make colorful plaid designs called tartans. A tartan is made up of identical warp and weft thread color sequences. The ruling clans or families of Scotland each had a distinctive tartan, many which still bear the family names today. The Queen of England even had her own tartan called Balmoral. It can only be worn by members of the royal family and only with the Queen's permission. In medieval times, professional workshops run by men only would be commissioned to make large tapestries that would hang in the noblemen's castles. These tapestries would serve to decorate the castle walls and would often relate stories of great events in the nobleman's life. They were very expensive to make and were often considered status symbols that showed how wealthy the owner was. They also served the greater purpose of blocking the drafts and keeping the rooms warm. They were considered decorative as well as functional. American Indians of the Southwest, the Pueblo, and later the Navajo, have been weaving blankets and rugs for centuries. They raised their own sheep, harvested the wool to spin into yarn, which they then dyed using natural elements like berries and roots. This yarn was woven into blankets and rugs, which they used themselves, but more importantly were sold or traded to other tribes, and now in more modern times to tourists and collectors. This provides the tribe with the means to better their circumstances. The Mayan Indians of Guatemala include weaving as an integral part of their everyday life. The process of weaving is passed down from mother to daughter. The creation of one blouse or wrap can take weeks because of the complex patterns and thin yarns they use. The patterns are also associated with different villages and are a way of showing identity. The use of bright colors makes Guatemala weavings very distinctive. There is not one day that goes by that we are not using something that is woven. Although the process has evolved over the centuries to allow for mass production and wider variety, the need for woven product is still crucial. It is a common denominator for cultures across the globe and throughout time.